Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dove Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. So today, a great opportunity. My friend Phillip Read, he's the chief of police for Bridgewater, Virginia. I met Phillip, I'm thinking right around 15 years ago as we record this and we have this conversation. And that was in a less than positive experience. I worked in safety at the time. We unfortunately had a workplace fatality, and Phillip was with the Harrisonburg Police Department at the time and came out to do the homicide investigation because that's how it's handled from the beginning. And that was just in passing, but it was a positive experience, as positive as it can be in a situation like that. Now, a few years after that, I left the organization and was working for another. And it just so happened that my boss at the time, great fellow by the name of Rob Frazier, he reconnected me with Phillip. And things have just progressed over the years since. And I've seen how intent Phillip has been on studying leadership and really guiding the team that he's part of. And I've watched that grow through the Harrisonburg Police Department when he was sergeant, had a lot of different responsibilities there, led SWAT, did a bunch of different stuff that he'll probably talk about. But in 2022, Phillip accepted the chief position in Bridgewater, and it's just been a cool ride since. We've been working really closely. Gosh, I've even put on a suit and been the taser dummy for him a couple different times. Sorry, 2021 when that was. I was the taser dummy 2 different times for the recertification for the team. So that's how much I've enjoyed working with Phillip and his team. So Phillip, I butchered it a little bit. So how about you talk a little bit about your professional background, your experience in the industry, and then we'll dive into some more specific questions.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, been the chief here at Bridgewater Police Department since September 20. Before that, I did 12 years with Harrisonburg. Various different roles. When we first met, I was as a detective sergeant at major crime, working different major cases and so forth. And for those 12 years, it was great. Did a lot of different things between investigations, special operations, patrol, SWAT team, on the bicycle unit, and just various different things. Lots of fun stories to tell with that. Before that, I was in the U.S. Army with the Army National Guard and did a few deployments as I went to college at JMU back and forth. And I did a tour in Afghanistan and another one in Iraq. I've always been enthralled by leadership and leading others in good times and bad, in emergency situations, and in a garrison type administrative setting, in the various types of leadership that you have to do when situations take. I always say I like situational leadership because in an emergency situation, sometimes you have to be the authoritarian. I need you here, this setting up a perimeter. I need you over here securing the scene. I need you with the ambulance and with the victim. Yeah, you just have to kind of bark orders sometimes during an emergency situation. But obviously, that's not the type of leadership we always need. In another setting, you might have more people get a vote. Like, let's make a policy change. Get some input from your officers, get some input from other individuals, and then make a uniform decision among the group to get group buy-in and so forth. So different situations warrant different leadership styles. With all that being said, yeah, that's a little bit of my background. I've got a wife and 4 children, very, very active at home. 2 teenage girls and 2 boys that are younger. And we have just been kind of growing up in the Rockingham County, Harrisonburg area. Now I've been in Bridgewater, living in town for the last 10 years, almost hit 10 years now. And it's been great.
Yeah, you touched on something. I'm going to go off script a little bit. I believe it's in my book, What's Killing Your Profitability. And I'm saying that because Cindy and I just referenced you as a specific example. We did a keynote for a group of nonprofit CFOs in DC about 2 months ago now. And I referenced the importance of the difference between authority and influence. And both are very, very important. And you referenced that, and I make the case in that book that it's not an either or. You need both. And to lead a team effectively, sometimes you've got to manage situations, and that's what you just described. But to do it when nobody's looking and to maintain that, it really influences what takes over. So it's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And authority gets way more traction when influence backs it.
Yes. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you have to have the buy-in, the influence to begin with, especially if you're leading others into a dangerous situation. Some are like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm not following you. Yeah. So absolutely that influence takes over. I know different times overseas in a military setting, there was leaders that you followed, and then there was leaders that you were like, I'm kind of busy right now. Yeah. So yes, influence it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And Philip, again, a little bit off script, I'll say that's what I've seen and I've been most impressed with. That's why I enjoy working with your whole team so much, because that connection's there across. It's a fantastic group of folks. And it's not that I haven't met great folks in other departments. I really have. But the camaraderie, the tightness of your team is something that I just don't see anywhere else. I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying it's what I haven't seen. And that really comes with the influence, not just from you, but across your sergeants and everybody else. It's really cool. And those things have to be there to really get that cohesiveness across. So well done with that. So you mentioned your time overseas. You mentioned your career. You talked about those different things. You wrote a piece in each of my last two books, but the first question talks about the first of those two, the 2025 book, Purpose. You wrote the initial segment. It was kind of a testimonials, a piece that was in there, but it was about more about why the book mattered. And you touched on, here's why I did what I did. Talk to me a little bit about what that clear purpose is for you, for the folks that haven't read the book, haven't read your piece at the beginning of the book, what it is for you that you've chosen the roles you have, and specifically in those roles have continued to look for more leadership responsibility, because that's not a light burden to carry.
Well, the clear purpose, a lot of people are like, oh, police are police. The clear purpose, you want to help people. And that's the generic term, generic answer in that regard. But with police work and military service and so forth, I've always felt myself in wanting to step up to that next, being in something bigger than myself. So if I'm not in this role, somebody else is going. I'm not super extra special or anything that nobody else can do this job, because at least I know that somebody will always be filling this role as well as any other role across the nation. But the biggest thing for me, my purpose in this is to really be a part of the cure rather than the problem, and be a part of and actually doing something for others that makes a lasting impact, and being that if somebody else is I've had good leaders and bad leaders. And if I don't step up and put in for that promotion or put in for that corporal spot or sergeant or lieutenant, or if I don't put in for, then somebody else is going to. And would I rather, sometimes I get a good leader, sometimes not. And it's like, well, I'm going to shoot for it. And if I get it, great. If I don't, then I'll definitely fall in line behind whoever does. But the biggest thing is having my purpose is to be able to use my skills and my abilities to influence others' lives. And that's the biggest impact for me. Others might be like, oh, you just saved my life, or you just really helped my family member, or you helped bring justice. And I'm thinking, a lot of times I get more out of it than I think others do. So that's my purpose.
And it's strong. And I'll say what I've watched you do. You mentioned that you know that somebody else can and will do it when you move on. And at some point, we all move on from the roles that we're in one way or another. Just that's the way it is. But I've watched you be very intentional about developing the folks on your team to excel in their roles that they're currently in, but be prepared for that next step, even if that means they go somewhere else and take a different role and so on. I've watched you not hesitate even a little bit. And we've been a part of some of that, but it's been cool to see that you're equipping those folks as opposed to saying, I'm chief, I'm the best there is, there ever will be, kind of like Ric Flair used to do in wrestling, right? That's not it at all. So with that said, talk about who you serve and what that looks like, both your team and the town, because one of the things that I see you do very intentionally is not how do we generate revenue through traffic stops and citations, but how do we make sure that we're developing relationships. And the term community policing I hear get thrown around a lot, but the reality is I'm watching you live it.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So I'm serving not only the community, but I'm serving my officers and helping them serve the community, as well as I've also got a boss myself and trying to serve the needs and so forth of the town administration, whether it be town manager or council members. With everybody, you kind of got to go both ways up the chain, down the chain. But with the community, we're here to serve them. That's why we're here, and sending the officers throughout the businesses and really providing not just in the neighborhoods, but also in the businesses and checking. We had a program, we sent them out, and throughout the nights, they would check the doors and windows and make sure things are secure and do a proactive approach to policing and leave a little door hanger, flyer, Bridgewater police officer was here, checked everything was secure, or might even leave a note like unable to secure a window. Like they didn't even know that they had a window lock that was broken. They actually slide it up and down, or issues with unlocked doors. And a lot of business owners, not necessarily that they're lackadaisical, they've got a whole business to run and they have an employee that forgot to lock a door. It happens. I've seen very positive feedback with that, as well as many other things, extra patrols to the parks and helping the community in the different parks so they feel safe. The whole gambit, different things to be proactive for the community, for the businesses, for the citizens, as well as get what the tail wants to get across to what they want police officers doing and so forth.
Cool. And yeah, again, I'm watching it in real time. It's almost like Andy Griffith, except you do carry a gun. And I say that somewhat lightly, but the reality is I watch the friendships. If there's a parade, everybody knows who Chief Read is. And I need to see the interaction and the respect and admiration, I'll almost say. I know that's weird for you to hear it that way, but it's a positive thing. It's not like you're looking for, hey, bow down to me. It's like, I'm Phillip. I'm here to help you.
Yeah. I'm nothing extra special, and just here to try to do a good job. So
well, therein lies the extra special piece. I mean, it's one of the things that Cindy and I work hard to do too. When whether it's an event, a keynote, whatever we're doing, it's how do we shake hands with everybody in the room and be on a first name basis anytime we can, because as we all go through the same bumps and bruises one way or another, and that's just part of it. Now, my next question, Phillip, really ties back to something I typically say, what's one of your core values? But I know yours are professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and excellence.
Yes.
And I want to hear you talk about one of them and how you personally work to model it for your team, but make sure that the community you serve feels it in their interaction with you.
Yeah. So it spells out the acronym PRIDE, to have pride in what we do in our police work and so forth. So the second, respect. As a police officer, as a police chief, we have to respect others. And that's everyone. That's not just, I'm going to hear to respect a victim or a witness, but I need to respect those that are arrested as well, and to treat them with the fact that we see on the news, we see the bad things, the bad videos on the news of officers not doing what they should be doing, not respecting. But we need to, after we have to place somebody in arrest and take them to jail, we call them sir or ma'am and treat them with dignity. Now, they still might be nasty to us, but there's no reason why we need to go off on them and curse at them and so forth. Sometimes you see that officer, if somebody gets underneath their skin, but we really need to model the respect across the board, no matter who they are, what position they're in currently, if they're drunk out of their mind, or if they just got assaulted themselves, and to treat others with respect. So to model that, I have to show respect to it. They see somebody complaining about police and so forth, and they see the person yelling at me, cursing and so forth. I have to model that respect in front of the other officers as well, and just be like, hey, this guy's he's mad. Is he mad at me personally? He might be, or he might be more just mad because the role I'm in. And just to step outside that box and be like, you know what? I can actually do more harm than good if I go off. Do more good to show like, hey, I'm going to keep my cool no matter what goes on. And it's not some people are like, oh, you're taking a, being respectful and being passive is two different things. So to take a passive approach of like, oh, blah, 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 I'm just Eeyore kind of passive. No, that's not like, we have to take authority. We have to take command occasionally on different scenes, get control of the scene, sit people down, but respect with dignity is essentially. And there's two people currently incarcerated for trying to kill me. So in my police career, so the bad things do happen and we take care of business, but we're doing it respectfully.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to why the admiration comes in, because there's tough. And I'll go so far as to say the visibility, you touched on that. We see bad things on the news. When something bad happens, it gets highlighted for God and everybody all across the nation, and anybody in a uniform catches the brunt of it. But the reality is the thing that you just said, that carries over to anybody in the leadership role. We've got to hold a different level of standard. We're living in a glass house, make sure those things. So it's not just in law enforcement, it's not just in public service, it's everywhere with leadership. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because it ties across every industry.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about how those core values, professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and excellence, tie over to your personal core values, why you accepted the position, why you were excited day to day to day about leading the team that you've got.
Yeah, personally, I mean, all of those values is what I hold very high at the top of my list personally as well. Those values, no matter what position I'm in, I'm going to be professional. And here at the department, professionalism is the very first one listed. So me personally, in my own life, I'm the same person I am here in uniform that I am in shorts and a t-shirt mowing the lawn out at my house. Personally, that's the way I am with my children, with my wife, with my friends and family members. And what you see is what you get. And I think that's just a great way to live. And so that's why I have to give teaching lessons to my children occasionally on integrity and respect and so forth. That's, for me personally, it was a no-brainer for a department to have such of these values as myself. Yeah, the dedication, that is one you have to be dedicated or it shows so much. And to me, it shows in being laziness. Because if you're being lazy, you're not being dedicated to being a career police officer. And so that's one of my biggest pet peeves is seeing either lazy police work or just people just being lazy and not like my children not picking up after themselves, that kind of things. Yeah. So you got to show some pride, some dedication in what you do, no matter if it's at work or at home.
Yeah. Around 3 weeks ago, you and I were with a fellow named Mark Cole, and I've heard him say over and over, how you do one thing's how you do everything.
Yes.
And lazy and dedicated do not fit in the same sentence.
No.
100%. Now, that was a cool answer. I enjoyed that a bunch because, and transparently, that's one of the things that sometimes Cindy gets a little bit uncomfortable because what you see is what you get for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Sometimes that's like, ooh, and he's turning that back a little bit.
Sometimes it's a little bit too much, right?
Yeah. You slip in Xanax. I never liked marijuana. And that was even when it wasn't legal, it was because it was just not the speed. Now, I never tried cocaine, Phillip, but I'm glad I didn't because I do like fast paced stuff. And that might have been a little bit more than.
Yeah. That's good.
That's not what the police chief was bargaining for when he agreed to have this conversation. But I didn't do it. That caffeine is my drug of choice, hence the coffee. So, yeah, that was unexpected. See, what you see is what you get. That's just, yes. Now, stemming off of, I've got to get my composure here just a little bit. You touched on it a little bit. Give me an example. You talked about what you did for the businesses. Give me an example of some of the things that you guys do as a team, as an agency, that's really geared to support and make an impact either on the citizens or the businesses. And I'm going to challenge you. Don't use the business check because you just talked about that. Use a different one because you guys do a lot.
Yeah. So one of the things it's been going on for a couple of years, two or 3 years. We have a basketball court at the Oakdale Park, and it has been quite the area for young teenagers to just get in trouble, to be screwing around, and they're getting in fights. And then it's getting to, there's a little league tournaments going on and baseball games and so forth. There's the other kids with no parental supervision, and they're getting in fights and so forth. It's actually becoming more talking point than actual, is there really issues going on there? There were some. And so one of the things we did was we had to do extra patrols at the basketball courts. And that's not just driving through, but actually getting out on foot, talking with kids, talking with parents, have to be a presence out there. And then on top of that, when we hear of something going on, the officers would squash it immediately. They'd look at the cameras, they do an investigation, and we really were able to pinpoint a handful of kids, about 3 to 5 kids that were actually the troublemakers. And once they violated park rules, violated the law, like assault and battery or whatnot, we would trespass them from the park. And man, that has done wonders. Like that has just fixed the problem. And we have had problems out there a long time. Keep up the presence. That's what you're kind of asking, like a positive impact that the officers do proactive work out there at the park. That's one of the things that's actually worked out very well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's solid. And it goes back to you and I have had this conversation. You guys do things like touch truck and different opportunities to where the community gets to interact with you, develop those friendships, get to know you guys on a personal level. And I've shared, I grew up around law enforcement. And one of my dad's best friends as was growing up was a fellow, his name's Wes Jordan. He was career law enforcement. His brother Jeff was in law enforcement for a number of years. And it was just second nature for me. But the reality is not everybody has that. And I don't hands is the devil's playground, right? So
Yeah.
there's a degree of, if kids are unchecked, they're going to do dumb stuff. Then they're done that.
Yeah.
But
And
the other,
a lot of them are young enough where they're not necessarily, we're not getting criminal charges on them or something like that. So it's kind of like outside, it's a law enforcement issue, but it's not necessarily a criminal justice issue. So to take different approaches, get a hold of parents, just have to do a different approach with that type of thing.
Phillip, one of the most important mentors that I've ever had in my life is a fellow named Terry Ward. You may have met him a couple of weeks ago, but I remember from 1998 or so, the first time I met him, he was never a supervisor. It wasn't an authority figure, but it was putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, "Hey man, you're better than that. Get your head out of your butt." And I'm going to use the term adult loosely at that point. Legally, I was an adult, but I wasn't acting like it in many cases. But it was in the ties that you have to him. He was served in the first Gulf War, United States Military Academy, Bronze Star, a cool person, great background. But again, it wasn't about the authority. It was about the influence that he learned. And it was the positive presence. And that's what you just described. It's not about a criminal charge. It's about, hey kids, do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So very nicely done, sir. Now, talk about how those core values, the professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and excellence that you've mentioned a few times, I've shared a couple times here, how those have invested or driven you personally to invest in being that better person, how you put time, energy, and in many cases, finances into your own leadership growth. So you're the best example for the team that you lead and the family you lead.
Excellence, for example, the last one, excellence. If you're not striving, the excellence is not something you can necessarily reach. I think it's a way of life to always try to excel, to be better. You don't ever, oh, I've reached excellence. I'm excellent and I can stop learning. So excellence is a way of like a philosophy, a theory that, hey, I need to continue to strive for training, for leadership development, for developing those underneath me to excel, to be better constantly. We always have something to learn. I was watching this one thing. This guy was I think he was 100 years old and he was taking pottery classes and he would go and he kept making these pots and he's like, he never met this is the perfect one. And so he would go every day and make pots. And he's like, I was just striving for excellence, and not reaching it, but continuing to and he had beautiful pottery and just still learning at 100 years old and not taking second best for what it is and accepting that. Yeah. I think that the excellence goes for every officer, for every individual at home, as well as at work, with excelling to just try to be a better father, a better husband, excelling in leadership at work in all the different areas, whether it be with training or with some experience or having to take a look back at your personalities and seeing your weaknesses. So in the DISC assessment, I'm a very, very high D, looking at, okay, where are my weaknesses? I'm definitely more task oriented than people oriented and so forth. Anyway, so that kind of thing, like realizing, oh, okay, I can improve in these different areas.
Indeed. And it's been so fun to watch you. And it's hard. I mean, hey, same way. That's why we connect so well. The high D, charge hell with a water pistol, hold our beer and watch this. I don't drink, but the figure of speech. But the reality is it's part of it. But understanding how low my S is, that supportive, that patient trait, oh, that was more important for me to learn than how fast paced I was, because yeah, so we've got that. Now, you did something really cool about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, as we have this conversation. You were part of an executive panel. It was based on your contribution to the values advantage in the real world examples chapter about modeling your core values. Now, you had an inside look at the whole idea of the values advantage. And as we're building that out, that's going to be the values optimization pillar, if you will, of our people optimization system. And we've worked with your team a fair amount on that idea of how are we putting our values into practice. How do people see them? What do they look like? Talk a little bit about what you feel that folks that really engage and understand how putting their values into behaviors that people see them do, what they can stand to gain as an organization. But
Oh yeah, you really start to gain a name for yourself and to be known as that next tier above the rest. If you fully live out all those values, you're going to be seen. You're going to start a reputation for yourself, for your team, beyond what you can bark out or speak out. We're the best. We do this, we do that. But that doesn't get you very far. You can't tell people how great you are. You have to show it. You have to show actions speak louder than words, and to show the guys are doing this and the guys are doing that. And then have other people, citizens, businesses say, you know what, Bridgewater Police Department, me and that officer, he did blah, 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 like way beyond what they ever expect. And so that goes beyond more than that you can ever try to promote yourself kind of thing.
yeah. And hey, let's be honest. It makes a reputation if you say, here's our values and you don't live them too. It makes a reputation either way. It's just one that attracts people when you live them, as opposed to the one that people say, keep that away from me when you don't. Oh, very cool. Now, here's my last formal question for you. I'm going to ask one more after that, and I'll give you some time to think about it, but I want a spontaneous answer to the next one. This one is, what advice do you give to someone that's aspiring in their role and they want to take on leadership responsibility? And I'm really intentional about not saying growing into a supervisor or manager role, because that's more about position and title. I'm talking about leading through the influence that they can make a real impact on folks. What's the advice you're going to give the folks looking to do that?
I say the best leaders are those who know how to follow. I think you need to be a follower, and not in a bad way, but you need to know how to follow before you ever become a leader. Because if you don't know if you're not a follower, if you're always wanting to lead, and you've never followed another leader, you never really know what's valuable to the people now below me and get them to follow me. That influence of like, how do I get people to follow? If you've never been a follower, if you've never followed someone else before, you're like, because everybody's like, oh, I've had a really bad boss and I've had a really good boss. So what were those things that made them good and bad? And why did you want to follow the boss? What were those traits that you saw? And so if you want to pursue, whether it be supervisor or manager, those are just titles. Like you said, if you want to lead people, learn how to follow. And then on top of that, and then people will start to follow you. Be like, man, this guy, whether he's a hard worker, he's taking the reins with this and that, like he's getting these jobs done. People will naturally start following you. And at least initially, that's how I really feel like the ones that know how to follow or make the best leaders than later on. So yeah, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, it's powerful. And I've never heard that answer to this question, but it's one of the coolest ones that I've ever heard. And it took me immediately to, if I've never seen that someone's willing to submit to themselves to somebody that they can learn from, it's hard for me to trust that person.
Yeah. Yeah. You build trust that way. Yeah. Yeah. And it really, even though I'm the leader of the police department, I still follow others. I still follow police best practices. I follow the best practices. I follow, hey, these are training guidelines, that these are the best ways to train the officers. It's like, no, my way's the best. Those are the type of leaders you don't want to be anywhere around. There's always a mindset, and that's the excellence too. And obviously great leaders do have new ideas too. And I'm not saying a new idea is wrong, but there's always still some following to, you follow John Maxwell leadership principles. So you're like, okay, actually, I need to apply this to my life or that to my life kind of thing.
100% correct. And we can name the folks that we're thinking of that think they're the best leaders in the world, and we wouldn't walk across the road to do stuff to them if they're on fire. And that's a whole different story for another time. So I won't go there. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you one last informal question that I purposely don't provide in advance. And it's, what have I not asked you that you want to make sure that you share from a leadership perspective? Now, while you think about that, I'm going to talk about what's in the show notes. And I've put wherever somebody's accessing this, whether it's on, our Leading at the Next Level community, where you've got full video access, whether it's on our podcast, or even in the 2026 Leadership Legacy Digital Game Plan, these are in there. Because when you were on that panel, you probably had 10 minutes or so total, you've covered so many things that you couldn't do in that panel. And that's why I wanted to be able to do this as well. But I also wanted to make sure the links were there so they could learn more about you and Bridgewater PD. So there's a link to the Facebook page that's Bridgewater PD. There's a link to the Bridgewater Police Foundation that you've helped initiate. And I got to be on the initial planning meeting for that. So that was kind of cool. There's the foundation website. There's the Bridgewater PD website page that goes straight to here's what we do as an agency. And I've also put your LinkedIn profile. So folks learn who Phillip Read is. They can stalk you on LinkedIn or something like that. Now be careful because he'll put you down. He'll do it respectfully, but just don't do anything wonky. And quite frankly, I would too. I just don't have a badge. But all that said, now, as you're chuckling at my nonsense, what have I not asked you that I should be asking you about leadership?
It was like about a month or two ago, and I heard a phrase, and it just really rocked my world. And the quote, and I don't remember who actually said it, but the quote is, and I said this during your conference, was time is the only currency we spend without ever knowing the budget. And I'm like, wow. So what does that mean exactly? We're spending time in a job, in a position, or in something. And if it's not where your dreams can take you, maybe it's an initial position that you have to start to get to where you want to go. And that's totally fine. But if you're in a position or a job or something that doesn't have purpose or doesn't follow your values, then maybe it's time to start looking elsewhere and start to look at what values does this company or that company have? What purpose does this have in my life to help further my leadership or to excel in that type of position and to really have purpose in my life? So anyway, I'm like, wow, time is the only currency we spend without ever knowing the budget. And it just means life's short. And so there's things that like, well, that's really hard, just do it. Just if that gets you to where you want to go, then just do it. Or if I don't know if I can do that, just try. That's the best. You give it your best shot, you'll never regret. And so I guess that's the only thing, whether you're leading a police department or you're leading a team of individuals in a business or whatever it may be, it's got to have, if you have true meaning and value in your work, then you'll never really work a day in your life. It's going to be more fun. So even if somebody is trying to hurt you. Yeah.
Yeah. That yet another cool answer. And it takes me to, so I finished the manuscript and I'll be probably in early 2027 publishing a book called Leveraging Leadership Growth, Strength Through Great Professional Relationships, around the premise of, I've never felt like I'm really good at any one thing, but I've been blessed by some amazing people in my life that I've gotten to learn from. And as I was writing that book, Phillip, it was exactly that I have had some cool opportunities, but not because I deserved them, kind of like salvation, but that's a different topic for a different day. But the reality is, as I wrote the book, I felt a heavier and heavier obligation, not in a bad way, a positive one. Boy, you better be a good steward of it. And you better pay it forward. So at 50 years old now, I feel like I'm putting more time in and working harder than I ever have because your point, I don't know how much time's left. Better make damn sure that I'm doing what I can with it to pay it forward because I didn't deserve a lot of the opportunities I had. So I need to make sure that I'm using them the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a fantastic answer. Thank you for that.
So can you read this here or is it backwards?
Riding, it's like riding a bike, but I can't see the small stuff in it.
Except the bike is on fire. You're on fire. Everything's on fire.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's okay. I'm okay. It's okay. Let's see. But yeah, see, now if you had the video, if you're in the community, if you're hearing this on the podcast and you're not in our community, what Phillip just showed was the reason you need to have access to the community so you can see the video part of this. I'm not going to tell you what that one said, but it was worth it. I'm going to bring it to a close. I'm going to say that if you've got interest in the Values Advantage, where Phillip was part of the Real World Examples chapter, if you've got interest in learning about the Values Optimization Pilot Program that we're working through currently as we do this, there's links in the show notes to that as well. But if you just need continuing education credit, send me an email at admin@dove-development.net. We've got almost 200 hours worth of continuing education credit in our full Leading at the Next Level program. It's broken into modules and tiers, and there's a chat agent, there's a search function, and all this different stuff that can fulfill that continuing education need. but also help you get measurable return on investment in your role from a leadership perspective. Phillip, thanks for taking the time to do this with me. What a fantastic conversation. I appreciate your friendship and I admire the way you lead your team, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for
You bet.
having me.
You bet. Make it a